guys, how are we doing?
It's wonderful to be with you guys.
Excellent.
Romeo Day.
It feels like it's been a while.
It has.
It has.
Never has a week felt so long.
That's right. Look at his beautiful tan.
Incredible.
Right?
Is it real?
Didn't we do a podcast about this? About looking young? There you go.
I didn't say you.
Walk the walk.
No, I
Go on,
said
say
tan.
It. Walk the walk. I'm
I
walking
said
the
tan,
walk.
not young.
What was the giveaway?
It's going to be sweet, isn't it? This is going to be a sweet one. Thanks, Naran.
Okay, guys, great to get together. Let's take this opportunity to welcome back our viewers. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking for those who do. Please provide comments. We're always interested in getting feedback. And also take this opportunity to, I won't plead, but ask that you please subscribe if you're enjoying what we're doing here.
Get off your ass.
Oh, Naran, that's not very nice.
Yeah. It's going to be sweet, like I said. You're going to be all sweetness today. I can see that.
Gentlemen, today's topic. What makes a successful marriage?
Oh.
I'm going to leave now.
I was hoping you'd get us started.
Holy shit. Well, I can tell you what not to do.
Right, learning from your mistakes,
Well,
Naran.
let me perhaps start by asking another question, and then we'll dive into the topic. And that is, how would we even begin to define what is a successful marriage?
Well, I think the first definition is you're still married.
There are people who remain married
Yeah.
who are not in successful relationships.
No, of course, but a tongue-in-cheek at one point. But at the same time, I guess the first criteria is that you're still married after X number of years, which I am not. So, mind you, if we had the topic being successful divorce, then I'd put my hand up and say, yeah, I've had a very successful divorce.
Okay.
The sequel.
And we can talk a little bit about that as an offshoot of this topic, but for sure, I think the first step is that you should be together. Second step is you should be happy that you're together. And third step is that you should be looking forward to tomorrow and the future with this person, I think.
Well,
Okay. How do you guys agree with that? Anything you want to add?
let's start by saying how many years each one of us has been married to the same person.
What if we've stopped counting?
Well, 37 for me.
37 for you? Really? Wow.
Why do you seem so surprised?
That's a big number.
37 coming Halloween.
Wow.
So 37.
Better Halloween than April Fool's.
Yeah.
Wow. So in my case, you're what? 30, you're
So-
we're a
so-
year before you.
Yeah, so 1 year
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So yeah,
Should we
38.
should we act surprised?
Go ahead. It's up to you. It's
Well,
a free country.
it's
38
also-
years.
No, I'm just picking up on your response to
It's also
Dominic.
October.
has said
No,
37
because in
years.
this day and age, when you sit down and people like of our age and where we are in life, and we can actually throw out a number like that, being married, I think that's really impressive. It's unusual.
Okay, great. So I'll pull out a number, 32, and I think that's the right number.
There you go.
And I think I've figured out what the key to a successful marriage is. You and I share a wedding day, not to one another, but we share a wedding day.
We all three share the same month.
We do.
That's
there
true.
you go.
October.
Folks,
But not the same wife.
Not the same wife. No.
So my number, unfortunately, stopped at 18.
But that's pretty good.
But, popped out 3 kids with that. That's not a bad deal. And,
Well,
I mean,
You did pop it out.
I'll take credit,
Yeah.
even though
You were
deserve it.
involved in the process.
Correct. For 2 minutes.
I wouldn't go into that. Let's move on. Let's move on.
That demonstrates more stamina than many other men. Okay.
Your standards are low, but anyway, it's another topic.
No, my standards are high. My wife's standards are low. Okay.
Okay, guys.
All kidding aside.
Yeah.
So we've got 37, 38, 32, and 18, but no longer married.
Right. But you helped define success.
Yes.
So still being together. I'm going to really pick up on the second part of your definition, which is happy. Happy in the present and looking forward to tomorrow, the day after, and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Would you guys like to add something to that, or does that sit well with you as far as the definition of a successful marriage?
Being a capitalist, I looked at the.
How do you?
No, I'll tell you. To me, marriage has always been a business, in terms of looking at it. Yeah, like a partnership. In the sense that, to me, first of all, what was important for me was to have kids. So I needed somebody that I knew could contribute, could be a good role model, whether it was girls or boys. And so I looked at it that way. And that's, to me, the ingredient. Well, I know.
Okay,
No,
so
no,
I have a question, Don.
Yeah.
Did you slip in the word capitalist for effect, or are you going to come around to actually
Well, it is. because-
lining all of the arguments up to make us understand or
Well-
help us understand how capitalism plays into
Well,
a
it's because
successful
in
marriage?
a good business relationship, you need all these elements. Trust, somebody that you can work with, somebody that
Okay.
Yeah, but that's somebody you're going to sleep with.
Well, you're sort of sleeping with a business partner, whether it's not
Okay.
physically, but you're there. So it's like two gears together.
Well, another way I would say it is soulmate. I mean, having the person. I think that when you're connected, there's emotional intelligence. You feel comfortable in your own skin. You can have conversations. You can have, and most importantly, you can have severe disagreements and fights. But it always comes back to recognizing the connection that you have.
But do you believe that we only have one soulmate?
Interesting.
Well, do you have to believe in souls to believe in soulmates?
No,
but
okay.
I know what he means because I don't believe we only have one soulmate. We found one.
You find one that you're compatible
I
with.
found several.
There you go.
wow.
Three of them are here today.
Well,
Exactly.
We're not having kids with you, though.
No, you're not.
But you guys are talking about the criteria of meeting someone and then falling in love and getting married, as opposed to what we're supposed to be talking about, which is what are the things that make a successful
Yeah,
marriage.
so I'm with you.
let's focus in on the criteria. So let's say you met your soulmate, you met the person, because in the beginning we're young, we're stupid, you're attracted to the person, there's a physical attraction, there's a mental attraction. You can see yourself living and being with this person for the rest of your life. You're idealistic when you're young. So all of those things happen when you're in your 20s or 30s for most people to get married for the first time, which is I think everyone around this table. So once you get that person and once you get married, then how do you stay married? How do you grow in the same direction? How do you figure out that if one person is growing in a slightly different direction, how do you then assess this and fix it or work it and make it still work, even if it's not 100% the way it was in the beginning? Because chances are, for all all four of us, over 10 years after we all got married, it wasn't exactly the same as when we got married. No. And we had to do things and adjust in order to keep the marriage going and moving forward. I think that's the discussion to have in terms of helping other people figure it out.
I think that's a fair point. I would only add that, just like a tree that over the years grows into full bloom, that the roots of a successful marriage precede the actual act of marriage. And so as much as we can follow your train of thought and talk about, okay, you're now married, how are you going to ensure that it's successful? I think you actually have to prepare for that before the act of marriage.
Well, you need to be aligned.
So,
with the person.
It's more than that. I think it starts with, first of all, being authentic. There are many people who I've spoken to over the years who have said, the person I'm married to, whether it's a few or several years in, is not the person that I thought I was marrying. And when you ask how so, it's not just about some of the changes that you're referring to that take place over the passage of time. It's that person didn't really reveal themselves to be their true self. And I didn't see through that. So being authentic, I think, is essential.
Yep.
I think mutual respect is essential. And in order for there to be mutual respect, the person you're looking to partner with has to have self-respect. But that's essential. If you don't have mutual respect, I don't think you have grounds for relationship.
and maturity.
Well, maturity may come with time. I think that open, honest, effective communication is essential. If you can't communicate, or at least attempt to communicate, I don't think you're going to be able to effectively work through some of the issues that inevitably will come up over the years.
Yeah, and effectively mitigate the things that you guys don't agree on. So finding ways to find common ground without always just arguing or letting things escalate. So being able to compromise.
Yeah,
I think compromise is the biggest thing you can look at in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so just to finish my train of thought, I agree with you. I would add integrity, honesty, in that, integrity is for me slightly different from honesty in that integrity is say what you mean and act accordingly. Honesty is just truth. And to that, I would also add trust. So you have to be trustworthy and you have to have 100% trust in the person you're with. I think if those ingredients are in place, then there's a high likelihood you're going to
How about personality?
marriage.
But hang on, Pat. You just described the perfect human being.
No.
No, you did. So I think the problem, and one of the big problems, because I agree with you 100%. Everything that you said is essential to have a nice, proper relationship and a long-lasting marriage. However, I don't think many people on this planet possess all of those wonderful things that you just said. And if everyone did, I think marriage wouldn't be getting to divorce over 50% of the time right now. I think people would be good human beings. They wouldn't lie to people. They wouldn't portray themselves as someone they're not. They wouldn't turn into someone else after marriage. Like all of the things that we hear about that are negative, that you just said people shouldn't do, people do. So,
but Narayan, that's a different conversation.
It is.
We're talking about what goes into a successful marriage or what makes a successful marriage.
Yeah, you said be a perfect person.
No, I didn't say be a perfect person because I'm talking about some basic values and character traits.
Yeah, which are super good to have as human beings.
But those
are character traits
Yes.
and values.
What percentage of humanity
No,
do you
but
think
it
has
doesn't
those?
matter.
Naran, if I may.
No.
Naran, I think what Pat is saying is, these are the qualities that are required in a relationship. And these qualities address what you're saying. I mean, when things start going in the wrong direction, if you have a certain level of maturity and if you have a certain level of trust, there's the space to be able to deal with that.
100%, I agree.
But you start off from that base, I think. Isn't that what you're saying?
Well, exactly.
So all I'm saying is, in a way, I'm saying, duh. I'm saying, of course, if two people are well-adjusted, if people have good communication, they're honest, they have integrity, they do all of these things that you said, of course, the probability that marriage is going to last goes through the roof. I think the problem is finding that type of person.
It's not that complicated. I look at situations where, say, two individuals are dating and it becomes apparent to one of the two that the other isn't an honest person. They have a tendency to lie and mislead. And yet they convince themselves somehow that that's okay. Either the person will change or when we're officially married, somehow things are going to come together and the person's going to stop behaving that way. You're just kidding yourself.
Agree.
And you talked earlier about stupidity when you're young. I'm not sure it's stupidity. That's where I think maturity comes into play. That's being immature. That's being naive.
Right.
Believing that somehow a person who you see a certain way but want to convince yourself will change remains who they are. They're actually being who they are.
Personality and character traits are important. But one element that's even more important is to have common projects. What's the biggest project of most marriages?
Having kids.
For the first 25 years, is to raise kids.
So common projects, perhaps common goals.
Exactly. So like, your careers, whatever, but raising kids, it's the first 25 years.
Yeah, and that's an excellent
If you have 3 kids, it's 25 years. They reach 18, then, they're adults. So
that's a great point. Again, think of the people you have come across over the years who may not have wanted kids, married someone who did want kids. One of the two makes concessions. So either they end up having 1 or 2 kids or they don't have kids. And all of a sudden they become bitter towards one another.
Yeah.
I never wanted this. It's not what I signed up for. It's like, you knew this from the get-go.
exactly.
So I think part of the issue in terms of why so many marriages are not successful is that for a variety of reasons, we try and convince ourselves that in spite of certain character traits that are not common to our own belief system, are not core to who we are willing to accept because somehow we think that that person will change or we will adapt, and we don't.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But the other part of it is what I said earlier, which is all of those traits that you mentioned are really good traits to have, but not everyone has those traits. So to your second point, yeah, you may have two people who like to lie to each other and they're okay with lying to one another, and they might have a great successful marriage because they're both lying bastards.
I have never encountered such a.
Well,
such a
I'm just
situation.
I'm giving you a hypothetical. I'm not giving you an exact thing, but whatever trait that they might have, they both don't like to go out. They both, I don't know.
So I'm going to use another example because
avoid
I don't
things.
think lying is ever okay. In that
Again,
in that,
I'm not using that
No, but
example
I'm gonna
so
use
you
the-
can
I'm
pick
gonna-
at it.
No, but I'm gonna use an example.
Okay.
Which many people will take exception to, but I think gets to the heart of the point you're trying to make.
Okay.
Some people will say successful marriage is rooted in fidelity,
Okay.
and I will disagree because there are
Of course, I agree with you.
there are people who
You
are
cheating bastards.
No, there are people who marry, but are both of a mindset where they believe in and want an open relationship.
Yeah, that's fine. There are some.
And so long as they're both sincerely of that mindset and not just doing it to
I don't
please
know
their
anybody.
partner.
I don't know anybody. I don't know of any couples. Am I the only one?
No, I don't.
I don't know anybody.
So I don't personally know, but I've seen documentaries that
Yeah,
touch on this
yeah,
subject.
yes.
where-
I had a boss that did that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think
And he
the issue is
propositioned me,
those,
so.
those situations. end
he?
up
Did you say
poorly.
here?
He
Propositioned you.
me with
Ah.
with my ex as at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. I thought he propositioned you personally. So.
Well, he did kind of look at me weird a few times. But
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah, well,
So there are people that
I'm
that
gonna
do
fi-
this-
I'm
this
filing
stuff.
that one.
but that,
under Rand.
but that gets back to a point Dominic made earlier, which is, common goals, common values. If you both want the same things, and that is truly a reflection of who you are, and that doesn't change, and you manage your relationship accordingly, then you'll be happy.
Yep.
It's not for me. It's not for most married couples that I know. But if it works for some, so be it.
I'll tell you another element. My case is to have a life outside of marriage.
Yes?
Friends. That to me was essential because you need that.
You need your space.
You need your space. Our friendships here and
Yep.
FTC. So to me, that was essential.
So, yeah, that's a great point. I think that there are too many people who, when they get involved in a relationship, lose a sense of self and put aside all their individual interests and personal goals. So there's the common goals you referred to earlier, but it's also okay for each individual to want certain things from life that differ. So long as they're not matters that relate to the family unit or to the relationship, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and it also depends how much time you take away from your family in order to do these things. So,
Well, like
and
I
that's-
said-
and that could be a point. There's two aspects. Sorry, one, if you don't do those things, you can get bitter in your relationship because hey,
Right.
my wife didn't allow me to do these things, or my husband didn't allow me to do these things.
Yeah.
The second part is, well, how much time do these things take away from the family? And there might be a reason why that your spouse is bitter.
But
with
you have, but
You
you
have
have,
to be reasonable.
That's
yeah.
right. And if you have that foundation, then
Exactly.
you know where to draw the line.
Well, exactly. So communication foundationally becomes very important. And when the other thing that I found in my relationship is that my spouse sometimes kept things inside and didn't address the issue at the time that it happened, but rather allowed things to kind of stagnate and grow to the point where it would then become an argument for something small because of all the 5 bigger things that happened before that she said nothing about, for example. So again, communication was a huge issue in my relationship on that front. And that's something that, that I would suggest for everyone who wants to remain married is to keep the communication open and to be honest about everything.
I think also that there's a certain type of personality that can make marriage tougher. So you also have to have
Are you looking at me?
Let's keep going. So if there are people who the example that you gave, right? If there are people that are just not comfortable expressing what they really feel, and that's just a personality trait, and that's the way they are. That's going to cause a problem in the relationship.
Yeah.
So there isn't a perfect answer.
But Aki, that doesn't suddenly happen.
Yeah, yes, I agree with you. You like
So it
going
comes back to oftentimes
Yeah.
you know what you're getting yourself into.
The red flags, the yellow
People
flags.
may be naive, but they're not blind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, well, okay. So to follow your formula, then these would be the kinds of things that like a couple who are making long-term plans and for whom marriage is in the cards. These are the kinds of conversations that have to take place.
So we're getting back to the beginning of who you choose to be married to being the first and like the most important decision. And I'm wondering, is there something that married couples can do if they've chosen wrong but have the ability to adjust? Because when you're young and you're choosing your spouse, your mate, like you said, you may gloss over a bunch of things because you're so much in love, whether it's attraction, whether it's whatever it is. There could be a bunch of things that you're really attracted to this person about. And the 3-4 red flags, yellow flags, things that, I don't really love this about this person, but it's okay. I'll compromise because he or she is so much better in every other way. And then you do get married. That happens, I think, more often than people are perfectly aligned.
But that's a test, and that's an ultimate test of a marriage, to be able to come to terms with that and to address it.
I don't look at it as a test. I look at what are the tools that you need now as a couple to be able to address these differences and actually succeed in your marriage, which is, I think, what would help people who are listening to this.
Go back to his recipe.
I would say, with few exceptions, depending on the areas of misalignment, I don't necessarily believe that it can be fixed. I think what happens is people can learn how to coexist.
Yeah.
They can reduce the amount of tension.
I fully
and
disagree.
disaccord.
I fully disagree.
Well, you can disagree all you want.
Well, I'll tell you why
I'll
tell you why I'm disagreeing. And I just lost my train of thought. No, I'll tell you why I'm disagreeing. It's because if you have the ability to communicate effectively, and if people have the ability to compromise their own reactions and their own actions, they can figure out a way to fix an issue. If you're saying that, if you didn't choose right from the beginning, you're never going to be able to fix it.
That's not what I said.
That's what therapy is for.
My
right?
point, therapy often fails. My point was that depending on the areas of misalignment,
right?
So if the issue is strictly a communication issue, I agree with you. There's a higher likelihood of putting the marriage back on track and succeeding.
So you're stripping the layers.
Most areas of misalignment, in my view, cannot be fixed through therapy or other means.
Exactly.
I disagree with you.
Because people have chosen to ignore character traits or values
I disagree with
But what are
that are fundamental to the success of the relationship or partnership.
So, Pat, what are some examples of those inconsistencies or incongruences that are absolutely cannot be resolved?
By the way, sorry, just pause on that.
Okay, let's pause on that. Go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to say is the only thing I disagree with you is the word most. I agree with what you said, and I agree with the question, what are those things? But I don't think it's most. I think it's a percentage, but it ain't most.
Well, I come back to the core values. So I had mentioned mutual respect.
Yes.
A person who's disrespectful, in my experience, will remain disrespectful. A person who lacks integrity and who's dishonest
100%.
will always lack integrity and be dishonest. They can
100%.
fake it for a while, but not indefinitely.
Okay.
A person who's not trustworthy
Integrity.
will never regain trust. You can fool yourself and think, they ask for forgiveness, I'll turn the other cheek. No, you're kidding yourself. Effective communication, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because communication is a skill that can be learned, that can be taught.
Agreed.
It's not part of your fabric. It's not part of your wiring.
So all I'm saying is it ain't most marriages.
Well, I just mentioned 5 things, only one of which can be fixed. So therefore, the majority cannot be
I think
fixed.
people can learn to respect. I think respect is salvageable.
I don't.
I don't.
I don't.
Really?
At 30, 40, 50 years old? No. At 60 years old, yes. No, not at 30, 40, 50.
It's in your DNA.
No.
You have to choose.
I don't know.
So
as a human
another thing that I think can be
There's
fixed.
always exceptions.
Another thing that I think can be fixed is for certain couples, the romance fizzles over time.
Yes.
You get so caught up in diaper changes and other facets of life, it gets in the way of intimacy. That can be fixed because I think with a minimal amount of effort, couples can continue to have a whole lot of fun through the years.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
It's called the internet.
Well, I think we have a consensus.
Get those
But you
whips
know,
out,
guys,
boys.
I don't know about the internet part, but yeah, I do believe that.
There's one element.
OnlyFans? What?
There's one element when your marriage is, is, let's say 20, 30 years into it, you got to start ignoring some things. Some comments.
Absolutely.
I think that's important.
Diplomacy.
Yeah, you just ignore it.
It depends what.
Depends what, but the little things, you've got to ignore them.
Well, look,
I agree.
that comes back to adaptability. So there are certain things, for instance, it drives me nuts that he or she leaves their dirty dishes in the sink. Okay, you'll adapt to that. That's not a showstopper. Now, if that's underlying a much more serious issue, don't ignore it. But that's not a big thing.
No.
He or she leaves their dirty laundry sitting on the edge of the bed, or that can be fixed. That's not a major deal.
Yeah. I just want to go back to your
But
list.
oftentimes those little issues
Yeah.
mask an underlying issue that is far more serious.
What I want to say about the list that you provided earlier, these are the qualities that you think would make a marriage absolutely irretrievable. I think there's only one really that I like. The dishonesty is the one that I agree that poses like a serious hurdle. But for all the others, now that I think about it, I think that those could be resolved. I think this again. I go back to my example. I think throughout life, people do mature. They do learn from life's experiences, and there is a possibility for somebody who's been disrespectful to change their approach and their attitude. I believe that. So the only one, if there's absolute dishonesty, I agree. That's
and cheating
that's
and
to me,
violence.
And I put that under
Abuse, like all of those things.
Right. I put that under dishonesty, and I put under character flaws, like critical character flaws.
Right. So,
But
We have a
my
difference
point
of
is,
opinion, which
I
let us
agree, I
realize.
agree with Aki. I mean, honestly, I agree.
We will mark the date and time where Nuran and Aki agree.
This is it. No, but I agree with you because there are ways, and the reason I say that is because of my failed marriage, but the things that we did in order to try and make it work, and going to therapy, and you said something about therapy being mostly useless. Yes and no. It depends on the people, on the people's will to take it in and do something with it, and it also depends on the therapist. Because I went to 3 different
agree.
ones, and 2 out of the 3 were
Right.
nonsense.
I agree with what you said. Other than I never said it was useless.
Yeah.
You said it was
My point is
that it doesn't work.
Most interventions
right,
do not resolve the core issues for reasons that you just outlined.
right. So
Noran, don't use failed marriage. You were married 18 years.
well, yeah.
200 years ago, you married at 20, you die at 40.
Okay.
So
So I've been married a lifetime. Is what you're telling me.
So it wasn't.
You came into the world at the wrong time.
So maybe that's one element we should talk about.
Yeah, and also the other reality in your case, if I may, is you're still friends. You respect each other. You have
Yeah.
so that
We have a great relationship.
So
and
that mitigates.
Knock on wood.
That mitigates a lot.
Is being married, 40, 50, 60 years normal?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
Because it's
Is
not
it?
in humanity's.
Exactly. In humanities, that never happened before.
Yeah.
I mean, people would die at 60.
Exactly.
So now,
Yeah, but they'd get married at 12. But anyway.
well, I
Or
mean,
14.
they're not really, even if they got married at 20.
Well, the guy would be 30, but the girl would be 14.
Yeah,
But anyway.
so,
Also, that raises another question. All kidding aside, how much of what we're discussing is cultural?
quite a
Oh,
bit.
quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Quite a bit.
Let's touch on some of that.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm Italian, and mind you, my parents got divorced at 65. So
Which was unusual for that
And
generation.
For that generation, yeah.
But then again, there were some serious
Oh, they should have never been
health
married.
issues, but there were health issues as well, weren't there? Okay.
Psychological, yeah.
Yeah.
Mental health.
Yeah,
mental
yeah,
health.
yeah. So which is
I mean, it's, but yeah, you're right. Cultural, yeah. Italians,
Yeah.
We try everything to stick around.
right. Well, look at us. We're not. I don't think any of us. Well, with your exception, of course. But for most of us, we are the offspring of marriages that lasted a lifetime. Right.
We are. But the question we should be asking ourselves is, were those happy marriages? Because it was also much more common
Let's go there.
for couples to remain together even though they were unhappy.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that I just marvel at is the number of people that I was friends with when I was a teenager who I'm still in contact with today, some close, some not so close, but almost inevitably, if I'm talking to these people, they will bring up my parents. I'm like, what? Oh, I would come to your place, I would see your parents interact, and I would think to myself, wow, that's what it should be. I said, okay, when you're growing up in that environment, you don't realize it.
Yeah.
Right? And then they go on to tell me my parents stayed together, but they were at each other's throats. They couldn't stand each other. They're always fighting and bickering. And whereas I look at my parents, they remained playful. They were happy to the very end. So yeah, I think part of it is, we come from families where the parents remained together in a partnership through their entire lives, but were they happy? In my case, I can say absolutely my parents were, whatever term you want to use, but in a happy, committed relationship. And it served as a role model for sure in that I wasn't going to compromise.
Yeah.
I'd kind of agree with that for my parents as well.
Yeah.
Pretty.
Yeah. No, my parents, I wouldn't say they were always happy.
Well, your mom was tough also.
Yes, smart, very smart comment, because you met my mom. Yeah, I don't think you know her and you did, but yeah, Dominic, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So my mom was very, very tough. And as people who had the immigrant experience, I mean, that also impacted their marriages. In my case,
How so?
Well, in my case, coming to this country, when my mom was in her 40s, coming here, in her 30s rather, coming here, it was a severe culture shock. So it wasn't a case of really coming to the promised land and opportunity. That wasn't for my mom. That wasn't the way it played out, and that affected the marriage. My father was the one with the common sense. And who said, we have a family, we have to move to a more stable place. We were coming from Turkey at a very bad time when there was martial law, all the animosity, between Christians and Muslims, and as Greeks from that part of the world, we weren't very welcome, and all indications were that things were going to get even worse.
I know what you mean.
And you know what I mean, exactly, right? So, but for my mom, it was, that was who she was. I mean, that she had her family there. She had a small family, but her roots were there. She considered, yes, for her was the politics, but her quality of life, her everyday life there was very, very good. And she comes now here in the dead of winter, in November of 1964. So it started off on a very, very, bad foot. And of course, there was some resentment toward my father for uprooting us and bringing us here and not considering her feelings. So that was really, really hard on them. But at the end of the day, it was about, your word, your vows are sacred. And regardless of the crisis, you have to remain faithful to your vows, and that was what kept them going. And of course, in their latter years, I mean, my mom, she was like an angel to my father when he had health issues, and tirelessly, being there for him, and total love, right? So you see that. So it wasn't like a straightforward, but there was at the core, there was like such a commitment to their marriage, and for us to set the example for myself and my sister.
In the end, that's what's important.
Yeah.
Well, that's personal. It's not important to some people.
Yeah. Right.
So guys, how can we kind of summarize what we think are the keys to a successful marriage? Besides picking the right person in the beginning.
Like everything else, it's always personal.
Well, it's personal, but I think that I have difficulty answering your question for the simple reason that, in my view, if you don't make a really sound decision going in, the chances of success are really not in your favor.
Well, but that's the answer. So everything that you've said to this point basically is exactly what you just said now, leads to this conclusion, because you've been focusing so much on the picking of the right person versus, hey, we can adjust, we can move over time, we could fix things out. So your advice to everyone is, hey, don't be rash, don't jump into something. Don't use your lizard brain, think about things, project into the future, and make sure the person that you have is the person that you're with has integrity, honesty, and all the other things that you consider correct.
Yeah, look, I mean, looking at perhaps from a different perspective, I would say for guys, the decision on choosing a partner is not to be made when the blood is rushing to the wrong part of your body. Right?
God, that's why I'm divorced.
And And for women, I
You
would
don't have
say
enough blood.
it's not when the butterflies are fluttering that you know, and there's a special sweet moment that you should be convincing yourself that this is the right life choice.
I can see you as a therapist.
Well, thank you, Aki.
Yeah.
Do you want to be my first client?
But I just want to say,
So I know for myself, as I said, I feel fortunate that I didn't realize it until a certain age, but I had role models in my parents that showed me concretely day to day what a successful marriage looks like.
but
And I know that, you know, in whatever relationships preceded my marriage, I would have looked at those relationships and I've looked back and say objectively, you know, I enjoyed the person, it was great. But the moment I would start asking myself, do I see this person as the mother of my children? Is this the person I see myself with in 30, 40 years' time? What is the relationship that their parents had?
Yeah, so you were using your brain to look through this stuff as opposed to being in the moment.
The easy part is seeing someone and, you know, you just absolutely fall madly in lust
Yeah,
with the
attraction,
person.
just
the
crazy
attraction
attraction.
is crazy. The chemistry, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
almost uncontrollable.
So you're saying don't jump into that.
So, well, jump into it if you're looking for a casual relationship, but allow yourself to look at that person as objectively as you can. And for me, not surprising to those who know me, it involves having a list.
Sadly, I was about to say that.
These are the attributes.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to allow my heart.
Was it a pivot table that you used on Excel? Or?
Macros.
Why do we always have to bring computer skills into the conversation?
Okay, so you.
So the answer is, did I have a spreadsheet? Did I have a list? Yes. I didn't need a pivot table. I didn't use a rating system. It's an easy yes or no. Does this person have these attributes?
But they were all weighted.
no,
Yes, they
no, no.
In the fact that they were prioritized.
Exactly.
Right. So yes and no to what you just described. For me, it was absolutely, there was a large amount of emotion, instinct, and the questions, those questions, you know, that you put on your Excel sheet, I addressed them, you know, through the conversations. To me, it was about getting to know the person, taking that path together, and to see, you know, if that's going to lead anywhere. But it wasn't as scientific as maybe our two friends here.
So it had nothing to do with lust.
Of course, it had to do with lust. Of course, it had to do with lust. That
Well,
was
it starts there, but
that was a part of it. But I mean, there was also this. All I'm saying, I'm bringing to this. I'm saying is that I think there's a very pure human exercise that this entails.
Okay, but so both of you talked about the choice. And maybe, I don't know, are you going to talk about the choice or how you did it afterwards?
For me, the choice, first of all, being Italian, I wanted an Italian girl. That was not negotiable.
But you married a Sicilian.
Yeah, I know. That's a good point.
What he's saying is he didn't have a choice.
That's a good point. So, I mean, so that was the starting point for me. So, I mean, that wasn't something that was negotiable. I mean, it could have happened differently. I don't know.
For me, yes, that was
Be honest.
No,
be
not the
honest.
main factor. Not the main factor. The main factor for me is the person. Am I comfortable with them? Do I enjoy my conversations with them? Can I see myself in the future with them? That's where I started from.
So, Aki,
and yes, do we have? Yes, and absolutely.
So that
Are
being
we
said-
sexually attracted to each other? Absolutely.
Okay,
Totally.
but that being said, would you have considered marrying outside of your culture?
Yes.
Okay. You would not.
No.
And I did.
You did.
And I did,
And
exactly.
I did too.
Well, he married in the right culture.
So I married an Italian. But she's Calabrese, so.
no. Look, I mean, I had other girlfriends that were not Italian, but
You knew they weren't marriage material because
Yeah.
they weren't Italian in part.
for me,
Yeah.
yeah. But there are other
See,
issues
so
also.
for instance, that never made my list.
So, okay.
Never a
again-
consideration
Yeah.
for me.
Okay. So, from my perspective, yes, attraction, but we were also fully aligned in everything from the beginning. And what happened to us in our relationship is that we grew apart in the relationship over the 18 years that we were together. And we grew apart in a way that was unfortunate. And I understand that now, but self-awareness is something that comes later in life, especially to guys, I would say. And for me, I'll speak about myself. It came later for me, and it took, I think by that time, things were not repairable from a marriage perspective because of the way we had grown apart. So what I would say is, when you're about to pick someone, don't go after, use your brain as opposed to just your heart. It's difficult because, all the feelings are there, and you're just, falling in love is a fantastic feeling. It's just the endorphins, everything. It just feels so good. And I think we were all there. So we know how that feels. But at the same time, you've got to step back from that and take a look objectively as to, hey, can I project myself 20, 30 years into the future? Is this the right mother of my children? Is this, and so on. If you can do that, great. And I thought I did that in the beginning because I was very analytical as well, a little bit like Pat in that sense. I didn't have a list, but I did have a list in my head, more like you, Aki. And for me, everything was ticked off. This is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
However, shit happened in the relationship. We kind of grew apart, and collectively, we didn't have the means to fix it. And the only thing that I would add to everything that everyone said, aside from being analytical as opposed to just feelings when you meet someone and decide to get married, is do your best to be as self-aware as you could possibly be, because that's going to give you the tools that you need in your marriage, along with communication skills, to be able to fix or potentially fix any issues that could come up over the years. And that would be the advice that I would give everyone. Don't give up, do your best, but at a certain point, you have to know when to pull the plug, because it's going to affect your children and your relationship.
Don't you think we use that term, we grew apart, too easily? Because we all change. Like, I'm not the same person I was 28 years ago.
So
neither is my wife. We grew. I mean,
Yeah,
but what elements of the person change?
Yeah, exactly. Personalities change. You grow as a human being.
Yeah.
Imagine you develop a reaction or a thinking or a way of being that really, really turns off that other person. But that happens 5 or 10 years after the
but
marriage.
a few things that turns it off.
Exactly.
I can't believe you said that. I'm glad this is being recorded.
So you get it.
She's putting up with it and she can compromise. But imagine that it was such a thing that she could not compromise on.
Especially with the gift that I got from my daughters for Father's Day. A session with a tattoo artist to get 2 sleeves.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
No.
Before you think I'm totally crazy, Aki, it's going to be a temporary ink. I'm getting too...
Good for you.
I'm getting
That's
too-
pushing the envelope for
Exactly.
you. I respect
Too
that.
sleep. So when she saw that, she freaked out. She says,
This is perfect.
yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm going to side with her on this one. Anyway. Yeah, you raise some good points. And so part of the underlying message is you need to be, in addition to being self-aware, you have to be adaptable. You have
Compromise.
you have to be willing to compromise and make changes.
And that's why my divorce has been so successful, I could say, because, and it's true, because of the level of self-awareness that I got in my 40s, early 40s. I was a late bloomer in that sense, unfortunately. And because of that, I can analyze and think through things a lot better now than I was able to do in my 30s and up to 40 years old. Mm-hmm. And now when I have discussions with my ex, even though sometimes we go into our spirals, we still understand one another much better. And we can get our thoughts across without being upset at one another.
that's because she goes home after.
Correct.
I think.
So I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
There are many cultures where, contrary to a lot of this discussion, individuals don't get to choose their life partner.
Yep.
They're selected for them. And statistically, those relationships tend to be as or more successful.
You know why? I can tell you exactly
Okay.
why.
Go ahead.
I can tell you why, because from the beginning you have to compromise because you don't know the person.
There's a better reason.
Well, I think it's because of that. The societal
because
reasons aside.
one partner
Hang on.
caves in.
No. Societal reasons aside, I think if you're in that type of relationship and people are betting on that thing to work, each individual or both individuals will be more willing to compromise and figure out a way from the beginning so that they can be aligned from the beginning. if you don't know the person you're marrying and you meet them the next week, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to try and find out about the person. You're going to try and make
Yeah, but
things work.
certainly you're not suggesting now that we should be going with arranged marriages as,
I'm just
as the
saying.
norm.
I'm just responding to
I thought-
Pat's.
He's answering a question that was asked.
I'm responding to Pat's question.
So there's a different point of view.
Yeah.
Dominic, go ahead.
We're all fathers here. We all know our kids better than they know each other. Than they know themselves.
Yeah.
And so what? Wait a second. Wait a
Wow,
second.
that's interesting.
So are you suggesting that you would do a better job of choosing a life partner for your daughters than they would for
Oh
themselves?
my! Don't,
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm
We
not
raise
saying-
them.
Aki, is he entitled to an opinion?
I'm not saying.
I'm
not saying
entitled
that
to mine.
And I'm not saying that my daughters have not made the right choice, but I would have done it just as good a
Yeah,
job.
but you wouldn't know the person. That's the problem. You think, okay, so the big fault in what you're saying is not that you know your kids very well. It's that you wouldn't know anything about their spouse because you'll only see what that spouse shows you. It's them that find out who that spouse is by spending real time with them. They could show you a facet of themselves that says, oh my God, this guy's the best person for my daughter. And you could believe that.
After 20 years, you know that.
Yeah, but did you raise? We're committed to raising. We're proud of the kids that we raised, and for them to they're smart, for them to be able to have autonomy and to live a full life and to be empowered. All of that you're throwing out the window.
Pat's question was different. He said that most arranged marriages have a better success rate.
I don't believe that. I question that.
No, it's true.
I question that.
He's right.
It's true.
Okay, so why are we not?
I'm not saying that our kids will make the wrong decision.
So Pat, then you're suggesting that arranged marriages it's a very legitimate model, and we should be doing more of that.
No,
Is
he's
that what
not
you're saying?
suggesting that.
No, I don't believe in it at all.
Thank you. Okay.
But I'm not. But
Statistically, he's
statistically
correct.
speaking. I
Okay,
stand by
I'd
my
like to see those
comment.
statistics. I
hang on.
question
So
that.
that's why
Well, you can question them all you want. They're available.
But that's why
Yeah.
that's why I answered the question the way I did. I believe that what I said is one of the reasons why these marriages actually work.
So now we're going to peel the layer back. Why they work. They tend to work better than Western society marriages in terms of longevity.
Yeah, but not happiness.
But there's no true measure of
not
happiness.
happiness.
Exactly.
And so we don't know.
Exactly.
And I'm willing to bet
Okay.
that if you were to survey those people
They'd be miserable.
anonymously,
Especially the women.
many would tell you, I am not happy in my relationship.
Yes, especially the women.
Well, no, I don't agree with you. I think the guys will be just as miserable.
Maybe happiness is overrated.
Well, here's a difference in opinion because we'll come back to that. I agree with you that in certain cultures, the woman doesn't have the same freedom to either express herself or to seek what is lacking in the marriage outside of the marriage. Okay. The men do.
Okay.
Oftentimes.
So that's a great topic for another Romeo podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. So you made the comment about being as well or better positioned than your daughters to choose life partners. I just want to use that as a springboard into one final question for you guys.
Okay. Go for it.
Which is, in addition to what we've discussed here today, is there any other bit of advice you would offer your kids in preparation for marriage?
Yes.
What would that be?
Whoever you choose, do your best to choose someone who has a good heart.
Excellent.
That, to me, is the most important criteria of all. Over trumping everything else, excuse me, is for someone to actually have a good heart, for someone to not be malicious, for someone to be caring and loving. Best thing you can have in a spouse, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, having two daughters, I have to say to them, there's a difference between guys and girls. Girls, a lot of us guys, there's a lot of things we don't give a shit about. Just learn that. We don't give a shit about it, about
that's assuming that they choose a partner of the opposing sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still on that line, so anyways. So I think that's important. We're different. Guys, girls, we care about different things. I think sometimes women, are a little tough. That we should care about things that we don't care about. They're not that important. So.
You mean that area rug? Isn't that
stuff
important?
like that. It's like just.
Okay, interesting perspective.
Okay.
Aki?
There are no shortcuts. and make sure that you are respected.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
I don't think I would add anything to what we've discussed.
Holy shit, we covered it all.
I don't know if we've covered it all, but I don't really have
Oh,
anything
yeah.
else that comes to mind that would
Covered quite
add
a bit.
value.
So, does that mean, is it possible? Guys, are we
Well, you're
done?
looking at it.
Are we done?
We're never entirely done. But for this topic, for this week,
Hallelujah.
guys, been a blast. Enjoyed the conversation.
Great conversation, guys.
Yes.
See you
Great.
next week.
Thanks,
Thanks
guys.
for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.